Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Hands-on SAP Dev, another Back to Basics session with me, DJ Q Macro. Welcome one and all. I'm looking at the chat up here now. I've got a little bit of a different setup because I'm just trying to minimize my requirements hardware-wise. But anyway, welcome to Gaurav. Good morning, Gaurav says, awaiting a lovely session on CA. Or CAP, maybe, I don't know. And welcome to Helmut in Brunswick, Braunschweig in Germany. And welcome to Vizes in Bangkok, Thailand, BKK. I quite like the abbreviation, BKK. It's pretty cool. Like TLAs, three letter abbreviations. I think hit the sweet spot with me in terms of, just perfect. And also to Solihull, greetings to you, Zahid. And welcome. It's very sunny here. It's also, I think the pollen count is quite high. I've been sneezing this morning. I've just been sneezing now. I've just closed the stern doors. I was going to keep the stern doors of my narrowboat open because the sun is shining through in a lovely way. But there's lots of pollen coming in as well, as you can probably tell from my nose. Anyway, so welcome, Chiara. Buongiorno to you in Brescia in Italy. And Helmut says, I already had a training run for next week's UI5Con run. Hope I can be part of the team. Of course you can be part of the team. You are part of the team. I'm currently injured a bit. Well, that's fine, basically. So what Helmut is referring to is, of course, next week is Code Connect week, where we have an SAP Code Jam on Monday on CAP and service integration. On Tuesday, it's Recap, the conference about CAP. On Wednesday, it's UI5Con. On Thursday, it's ABAPConf 2024 Europe. And it's going to be amazing. So all those conferences and events and things are taking place at in St. in Germany, in person, but also, as we put in the news, the episode of which went out yesterday, I'll give you a link in a second, you can watch all of the sessions virtually. So Recap, UI5Con and ABAPConf all have live streams that will be streaming each of the tracks and the sessions in those tracks. I'm having a run. I think is it on Tuesday morning, the morning before Recap? I think that's right, Helmut. I know that Wouter is going, and Robin, of course, and I will be going. So everybody's welcome. Whoever wants to go will run at the pace of the steadiest runner. That's cool. So there we go. And Dwight, hello to you. Where have you been? Don't do that ever again. Well, where was I last Friday? I was away. I was on holiday. Yes, had a long weekend. So it's quite nice. So yeah, sorry about that, Dwight. I won't do it again. I'll try not to do it again. Although next week I am not here again because I'm giving another Code Jam after Code Connect in Leverkusen on Friday next week. So I'm not going to be doing a live stream next week, but the week after again. Prasija, good morning to you. And Pratik, good morning to you in Brisbane. Marvellous. Good to see you. Did you attend Mastering SAP? Well, that was in Brisbane, wasn't it? Kazatis, good morning, buongiorno, here to Capira. Exactly. So, see, I like that. Kazatis has got the spirit of the whole thing. Chanakya, good morning to you. And Daniel, good morning. Yes, some amazing sessions with so many new topics on CAP. I'm hosting 2 workshops at Recap. Amazing. So, I've got my coffee. So let me just switch to the main scene so I can start sharing some stuff. As you know, let me put that in the chat. I mean, you should know this anyway, but links to all the resources are always in a little comment to the SAP community event entry about this particular thing. So that's this, what's it called? Back to Basics with SAP Cloud Application Programming, part 14. There's the link to the video. We always put one of these in here, and then I always add a comment with some of the stuff I want to share, and anything we do come across that we want to also record in terms of links. We'll put them in here as well, so there's like a reference to everything. Sudarshan, good morning to you. And Mathematicus, good morning. I love that name, Mathematicus. How brilliant is that? So you're all welcome. I love you all. So just a couple of things. This week's SAP Developer News is there. I've shared the link to this thing here, so I don't need to share individual links. In the SAP Developer News, however, one of the items was on an awesome bot, SAP versions bot. Let me just jump to that there. I won't play the news, but I'll just scroll down there, and of course in the news, there we go, SAP version bot. This is by our friend on the channel, Mr. Helmut Tammen. So Helmut, if you've got any other comments that you can want to put in the chat about this bot, I use it. So check out the news, what it is, and you can go and follow it on your Mastodon account in the Fediverse. It's amazing. So yeah, thank you for Helmut for doing that. That's really good. So I keep up to date with all the CAP releases and other UI5 related releases, and also, for example, the BTP provider for Terraform, you know, that's in there as well. So that's pretty amazing. So that's that. Oh yes, we've released another short in the series. Mark Teichmann, good morning to you. Looking forward to attending Recap and ABAP in Ord next week. Yes, well, awesome. Great to catch up with you and anybody else who's going. So in YouTube, we have a playlist. I don't know why that's all grey there, but anyway, I have a playlist, and what we're doing is we're trying to sort of condense into like 60 seconds or less in a, you know, mobile format, some sort of CAP tips and tricks and bits of info and everything. See where it goes. So let us know in the chat right now whether you think this is useful, interesting, what else you might think might go into a short form like this in terms of sort of good to know things about CAP. So the latest one was on CAP plugins with the telemetry plugin. So there we go. And in fact, we have Daniel Schlachter in the room. And I think, did I put in the comment there about, oh, stop. Did I put in the comment about, where is it? Where's the information? Description? No, but anyway, we'll find it. There's a really good, in fact, Daniel Schlachter, there we go, CAP CDS plugins, how to build a supplementary article, reusable components. Yes, I think you should read that as well. Let's add that to reusable components for here, edit, because it's awesome, edit. Why is that so small when you go to edit? Let's add it there, for example. Reusable components for CAP there. There we go. That's in there now as well. So we got that as well. Okay, so let's get started. What I want to cover today with you, if that's okay with you, is the after handlers. Okay, now let's just take a step back. This is where we left off, exactly where we left off last time. And we were starting to look at handlers, starting to look at custom server implementations, knowing also, of course, that out of the box, you know, the standard CAP server, the standard handlers will do all of the heavy lifting for us, and it's really only extra bits on top of that standard heavy lifting that we need to implement. And one of the things we looked at very briefly really was the on handler, where we say, okay, CAP, I, DJ, for example, or us, you, want to perform all the work necessary to return the data instead of you, dear CAP server, doing the normal heavy lifting. Okay, so that's quite rare that you'd want to do that, except in the circumstance where, for example, you're implementing some custom logic for a no data action or a function, because those implementations are also, you would also provide those in the context of an on, but we've not got to actions and functions yet in OData in CAP. So, you know, let's put that aside for a second. We also know there's a before handler, and put in the chat what you think we might use a before handler for. If you look at the links here, there's one down here, CAP listening, one down here that talks about the different handlers. So if I go to the top here, where is it? Methods serve on, before, and after. So before is a handler that you can register that's called handlers run before the on handlers frequently. Oh, let's give the game away now. Chanakya gets it anyway. Exactly, data validation. And also Amy before can be used for create and update operations. Possibly. I can't think of it. If you wanted to do some pre-work when you were wanting to handle create and update operations, then you might want to put it in there before. Yes, but I think the most common use case for a before handler is for inbound data or data validation in general, in a request that's sent that contains data. Okay, so Ulrich, good morning to you, and good morning, good afternoon, Ajay in where are you, Ajay? In Bangalore? I don't even know. Ajay's my friend and colleague. I don't even know where he is. Anyway, we're all global. We're all friends here. But what we're going to look at today is the idea of the after handlers, which run after the on handlers, frequently to enrich outbound data, right? And the really interesting thing, really interesting thing is, well, there's lots of interesting things. We spent a bit of time last time looking at the things that are passed to such a on handler. And we know that we get past the request object, and also by using the REST operator, we dug in with debugging, and we found that what gets passed is just one other value, which is a reference to next, which is the next handler in the chain that's actually part of the standard heavy lifting mechanisms in the CAP server. Okay, we found that out. So again, just to repeat, in fact, if I replace that with the word next, we sort of we can see with our eyes, that's the sort of thing that gets passed to an on handler. However, when we start thinking about, let's just leave that there for a second. We'll do a this.after as well. We'll start registering this.after. We'll do a read as well of the books. But now, let's just do that as well. There we go. But now, what do we get in here? What do we get past? It's not is it surprising that it's not? Maybe it's not surprising, but it's not the same pair of parameters that get passed to an on handler. Let's have a look at the documentation. So before, here we go, CDS request. Here we go. Here's the before handler type callback mechanism. Here's it. Where's the on? There we go. There's the on. Are we all following this, by the way? There's the on. And the handler gets given two things: the actual request and the next function. And that's what we've got reflected here, request and next. Okay, we've got these squiggly lines because, of course, we've defined these, but we're not using these. It's a bit, there's a brilliant meme, with an animal saying, whoa, it's like, hold on, editor, I am going to use the variable, whoa, calm down. I think it's quite good. But here with the after, where is it? The handler gets given two things, but they're slightly different. We get given the request just in case in our after handling we need to refer to something that came in the request. But remember, at this stage the request has already been handled by either the standard on handler that's built into the CAP server or by the custom on handler that we've written, right? And what we get is the first, and arguably one could say the primary parameter, is the data, the stuff that's been retrieved or calculated or whatever because of the request that came in. As in, we just get given, hey, by the way, after handler, here's the data that's been retrieved. Do you want to do anything with it before I give it back to the requester? Right? That's the idea of an after handler. So we get an array of objects. So let's see what that means. And also you get some examples here of what sort of thing we might do. We'll come back to this in a second. So let's just do this and say down here, data. So let's call it data, or shall we call it results? Should we call it results or should we call it data? I'd like to call it data generically for now. We're going to change it anyway, so let's maybe call it data and the request. Okay, and what all we'll do, console.log data. Okay, right. So far so good. Any questions? Oh, by the way, that's nice coffee. By the way. In fact, we'll get rid of this now. We'll get rid of that. There. So let's start this up. CDS watch, and let's see what happens. So we're getting our hello world log, and we're getting our I am in the anonymous function log output, and we're also not yet but we're not yet getting this console log data because, of course, there's no request that's come in that needs to be handled. So let's bring in local host 4004. Let's just bring that here and put that. Don't know what's happened to my. Oh, not there. There. No. What's going on? Put that there. Yeah, since the upgrade to macOS Sonoma 14 point whatever, it's broken something, which is annoying. So now we're going to make a request on books. Now, let me put my head down at the bottom for a second. What does that tell us? It tells us we've sort of not done any heavy lifting. The CAP server has retrieved or has processed the request, which is basically the request for the entity set, the books entity set. Let's move that across here for a second. There, bookshop, books. Let's get rid of that there. And this output here is the result of this console log data. Now, in fact, is it worth taking a digression? Let me know on the chat. Let me know on the chat, is it worth taking a digression? Because it'd be nice to have our own custom log records, wouldn't it? You know, we've got this OData log record type here, CDS. So why don't we just randomly, let's get rid of this whole hello world one anyway, right? We don't want that one. But what we'll do is we'll say const log, logger, let's call it logger so it's sort of different to log. Chanakya says, yes, please, your digression is a gold mine. Your digression is a gold mine. Well, thank you very much, Chanakya, I think. Not the same with the return next on this, .on read. Visa says, yes, please. Do I read that again? Not the same with the return next on this .on read. Exactly. Yes, exactly, Dwight. That's really good. And in fact, that remind me later on to dig into what we need to do, what is expected of us, because Dwight makes a really, really good point, a really good observation. We needed to make a return on the on handler of next if we wanted the next thing to be called, right? But here we're not making any return at all, are we? And when we start to look at some examples, which is the CAP samples, not CAP samples, SAP samples org on GitHub has some great examples of the after handler in use, and we'll look at those in a second. We'll have a look at some of the afters and see what people do. So Dwight, brilliant observation. And remind me in the chat, it's great to look into what that is. So where were we? Oh yes, log. So what we can do is say CDS, use the CDS facade and create a new logger instance, right? And CDS log, let's give it a name, cap B2B, right? That's our sort of, cap back to basics thing. Now we've got that, we can replace calls to the boring console.log to this logger instance. We could also mess about with the log levels, but we'll do that another time because this is not all about logging. And then we'll do that there as well. So let's get rid of that and do that. And now let's just save that, make a request again, and now check it out. How cool is that? You've got your own custom personal log records, CAP B2B. Okay, I think it's quite cool. You know, small things. I'm pleased with small things, like this little cinnamon roll thing. So we've got logs now, and notice then that what we get given as in the primary argument here, the primary parameter, is the data that's already been retrieved by fulfilling, effectively, more or less fulfilling the request. And we get a chance, if we want to modify that. What was that? What was the phrase that was used here? Use this method, this after, to register handlers to run after the on handlers, frequently used to enrich outbound data. The handler receives 2 arguments, results the outcome of the on handler which ran before, and an instance of the request, just in case we need to refer to it. So let's do something really stupid, but it's a classic thing, right? It's a classic sort of just adding on to a string. You know, this is all about basics here, so let's just not complicate, let's not boil the ocean. What all we'll do is data dot map. Well, it's going to be book dot title, add on an exclamation mark. Let's see what happens there. There, okay, let me make that a little bit bigger. So that's a really stupid example, and I've deliberately sort of been very vague about what I'm doing here with map, with the reference to data, the data parameter, with this callback, anonymous callback function and everything. Is, you know, quite functional, but I mean, no, that's by the by. So this is sort of also thinking about what Dwight was talking about and what my response to what Dwight was had observed. It's really interesting what's going on here. So keep that in your mind. You know, we're actually inside a code block, and remember when you have an anonymous a fat arrow function like this, and you have a code block with braces, nothing gets returned unless you explicitly say return this. Okay, so what is happening here? How is this modification as a callback inside a map function on the data inside a braced code block? How is that actually having an effect on the data that is passing through us, going to as a response, right? Because it works. Look, we get the exclamation marks there. 1, 2, 3. So have a think about that. Now, what was I going to do then? What was I going to do? Oh, yes. What we're going to do? Oh, yes. There's loads of things we can do. One of the things I started to get a little bit tired of is making a change here. CDS Watch is really cool, and it'll monitor for changes and restart the server. Look, let me just press save there. As you know, everybody knows this. Yeah, it'll restart. But then I've got to go across, all the way across over here, and then refresh. Boing, there. Okay. Now, I won't go into it in too much detail because I wrote a blog post about it recently. But basically, if we have a look, let's get rid of that and that. I wrote a blog post called Controlling Automatic HTTP Requests in CAP Node.js Design Time. A bit of a mouthful, but have a look at that. And what I did there was I sort of made things easier for myself because I'm lazy, and of course, you know, one of the great attributes of one of the supposed attributes of a great programmer is laziness. So I'm striving to be more lazy. Is to have the requests automatically resubmitted as well. Okay. Now, what I can do, let me get rid of that. What I can do here is I can open up another terminal, and I can, for example, if I change. If I say list all those, and I can say ENTR. I think we've mentioned ENTR before. ENTR is ENTR. Run arbitrary commands when files change. I think, let me know in the chat if we've talked about this before. Let me add that to that thing anyway. ENTR, ear, nose and throat. What's going on here? There, ENTR, bang, there. Right, post. So ENTR is in the Docker container, as we can see here in the dev container Docker file here. One of the things I install is ENTR, which is quite cool because it's super useful. So I can say, for example, ENTR echo hello, or let's just ENTR date. That's just as an example, right? ENTR date, okay? So it'll run that straight away. And then when I change something inside the serve directory, it'll do whatever ENTR tells it to do. So ENTR is a thing that's monitoring the list of these files here. Done. Save. 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 Now the problem is that if I were to say here, for example, ENTR curl silent local lolcat. Why else say lolcat? Local host 4004 OData v4 bookshop books. Let's get rid of that thing there. Bookshop books. Right, like that. And then if I save that again, there we go. It sometimes doesn't work because the server is still, let me put my head up there. The server is still restarting. Okay, so the request enter ENTR makes the curl request a little bit too early. It doesn't give the server time, of course, to start and, starting with the auth strategy, start serving, start listening and properly launching. So this blog post is all about, it's 8:26 already, DJ. This blog post is all about using one of the amazing features of CAP server, which are these lifecycle events. Okay, so what I did is I created a custom server.js and required SAP CDS. Is that big enough there? Required SAP CDS, and then started. I defined a callback on the listening lifecycle event, and the listening lifecycle event. This is all about this CAP server now. Is an event that's fired when it finally starts to listen on localhost 4004 in this case, when it's finally bound to that socket. Okay. Oh, Daniel says, and this is very dangerous because now there is a difference between, there's that heart in the way on the chat. There's a little heart thing. I can't see what Daniel's written. In fact, I'll write something to push up Daniel's chat so it moves up a bit in the chat. There we go. So Daniel says, and this is very dangerous because now there is a difference between the record on the DB and what we see as data on the UI. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So this is a very good thing to point out. However, I mean, I'm guessing Daniel's referring to when I put the exclamation mark on the string. Okay, it might not be, but Daniel, if it's not, let me know what it is. But it's just a simple example. But also, I think it's also fair to say, if you look at the classic cap hire example, we see here. Look, adding 11% discount to there, and I think on the previous ones it sort of adds dash 11% discount onto the title of the book. Okay, and that sort of deliberately is. Super simple, deliberately so, and you probably don't want to do that for real. I mean, putting an exclamation mark on the end of a string is stupid anyway, but it's just to show you that we can modify the data or add to the data. Here we're actually, defining a value for a discrete property here, discount property. Well, yeah, Daniel's right to point that out. Now, that said, we might want to change things on the fly. We might want to sort of automatically compute or modify stuff on the fly if that's what we need to do from a business perspective. But yes, beware of what you do. Now, so we've got this listening thing. So we can start to work with that. So I can now then write a file, an empty file, when the listening event is fired. So I did that in my server thing. I thought, oh, that was quite cool. But then I thought, tell you what, I could make a little plugin out of this. Good morning to Matthias in Dortmund, an old friend from the Hands-on SAP Dev channel. Welcome, Matthias. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to write a a plugin version of this. So I did cap listening plugin. That's also in the list here, cap listening plugin. So if you want to have a little go at writing your own plugin, this is probably the simplest example of a plugin you could ever get. It's almost like nothing. That is the entirety of the code. Okay, that's exactly what we saw in the blog post, right? But now it's in the form of a plugin, so that, and it's got this, it's in the form of a file, a magic file name, a bit like server.js is a magic file that the CAP server will say, oh, there's a server.js, a custom server implementation. I'll load that and execute the contents of that as well. The plugin mechanism does a similar sort of thing. And if you call a file CDS plugin in your imported NPM package, it'll run that and do all the magic. So what we'll do here is we'll say npm install --save dev. This is a design time dependency. So we don't want it in our, in our runtime in the cloud or anything. We just want it in the dev. So if you do that, and you can install a package straight from, for example, GitHub, straight from Git. So let's do that. This is a major digression, but there we go. Clear. Let's do that. npm install save dev. Now, what I mean by save dev, let's just see package.json. There, let's have package.json there. Let's move that across to there. Note that we've got dependencies and dev dependencies. Do we all know the difference between dependencies and dev dependencies in NPM and Node mechanisms? Dev dependencies sort of do what they say on the tin. They're dependencies just for the design time, just while we're developing. And that save dev means save it in there, record this in there, not in there, because that's the stuff that gets installed when you build and push to, for example, Cloud Foundry, which we don't want. We don't want this in production. So let's run that. That was a long explanation. Okay, I did one package, and notice there. Look, we got it in line 14. Cap listening plugin. There's a reference to the repo there. So now, if we do an LSLSERA, what is the latest? Let's list in long format and show the latest last. We can see this listening file that's been created. It's been created at 7:32, which is just now 8:32, 7:32 UTC. And there, it's because of this listening thing. So if I were to, in fact, watch ls-l listening, there. Right, if I now run, is it 7:30? It's still 7:32. Does that make sense, by the way? And also, is this digression okay? I think it is. And it might be useful because it is super. I find it super useful to be able to sort of, hands-free have my curl request, have my HTTP request redone for me when I change something, but only when the server gets a chance to restart. So Chanakia says, why is CDSDK not part of dev dependencies? Well, that's a really good question. Maybe Daniel can help us out on that question there. But basically, it's almost like CDSDK is a given. You need CDSDK installed globally to sort of bootstrap the whole sort of project initiation, right? So when I said CDS init right at the very start of this series to create a new CAP project, there was no project, there was no there was no package JSON, there was no nothing. It's almost like the Big Bang. So we needed CDSDK sort of installed globally anyway. Now, so that hopefully that makes sense, Janakia. So now if I save main.js, that should restart the server, but when and only when, in fact, when and only when this server listening gets re-triggered, we get the listening event fired at the lifecycle event, and then that will cause the CAP plugin to touch this listening file, which should change the timestamp. So let's save that, bam, 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 and then there, 34. Okay, perfect. So with all that in mind, what we can do now, let's get rid of this. What we can do now is say list listening. So all we need to do now is look out for the listening file changes, pass that to ENTR, and then say, let's clear the screen. Let's put a few things. So let's put it in bash C. Date, and then curl -s local host. You know what? It's only when I'm on the live stream I type lolcat host. I always type localhost correctly when I'm not on the live stream. What's going on? 4004 OData v4 catalog books, and we'll pass it into JQ to format it nicely. There. Oh, what's going on? Bash C update curl -s localhost 4004 odata v4 catalog books. Let's just pass that not into JQ for a second. What's going on? Oh, that's why. Odata v4. What? Oh, it's not catalog. It's bookshop. There. Right. Okay. So now. Watch this. I can make a change here. Save that. That will restart, but only once that's restarted and started listening again will this call be made. Okay, does that make sense? Let me know in the chat. Give us a sign in the chat that makes sense and whether you think that's going to be useful for you. And also, maybe you can sort of clone the repo and start developing your own plugins because it's amazing, right? Okay, so now we've got everything set up and we can sort of have these things retried. Now I can just go into here and let's sort of get rid of, let's put some X's instead, right? So X, just to show us that we're making a change. We can sort of visually see that. Okay, fine. Now, so actually just going back to, oh yeah, no, we want to look at some of the examples, don't we? So in here, what I put here, I don't know what's going on with this white space here. I can't make this white space go away. Sorry about that. When you have a nested bullet thing. So here's some examples in SAP, in the SAP samples org on GitHub of use of the after. So let's open them all up. We don't need that. Let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of that. Let's open them all up and just have a quick browse through. Define a custom after handler. Oh, we'll come back to that in a second. There. Right. We've seen that one already. So, dot after. So, for example, shall I make that a bit bigger? For example, and this is a great way, I would say, to sort of learn about and just stare at and start to soak it up under your skin, what it feels like to write handlers, what CDS feels like, what Node.js handlers feel like. I think we should read more code, right? So for example, here we can see that an after handler is being used. Well, there's 3 after handlers and they're all being used in really interesting, to my small brain, ways. They're being used in an update context. We're using an after handler right now in a read context, but this is an update context. So we can sort of, you can go back and stare at that, for example, and you can also pick out some beautiful sort of CQL, right? Core query language stuff, but we're going to do that another time. So there's one example. Let's have a look there. There, look at that. There is that classic, that what I was referring to when I was sort of addressing what Daniel was very correctly pointing out. This is the almost a canonical capire example where we basically append something onto a string of something that already exists. So add on to the end of the title -- 11% discount. But I think it's still beautiful because it's really simple. So this is the simplest thing that could possibly work. But who can spot what is the value of the first parameter that's passed to this after function? Each. What the heck is that all about? Put in the chat what you think that is all about. Okay. Have you ever seen each at all? And if so, have you seen each in that position in the parameter list? Let me know in the chat. We've got to come back to that. There's another after submit order. And this is also a beautiful example, right? Emit an event. So an after handler is a really good idea. Is a really good opportunity to do stuff like emit events when things have happened, because the after is sort of saying, well, the main event has happened. Oh, event is an overloaded term there. The main handling of this request has happened successfully. So I'm going to raise an event. So this after submit order, given the name, we can sort of tell it's probably an OData function or an action. So it's not a standard CRUD plus Q style operation. So await this emit ordered book, right? We'll do events another time, right? And then finally, search for after there. Look There's another beautiful example. You can actually have an after handler, there's the actual handler definition, running for multiple different operations on a given entity. Okay, and then there was one more, which I think brings us back to what Dwight said before. After there, read. Yeah. Oh, there we go. That's it. That's all there is. Not a one. So check this out. This is also interesting because Atanu says, and sir, can you explain line 19? This dot emit. Okay, of course. Line. Where was it? Was it that one there? Maybe. Was it line 19 or 29? Maybe. Well, there's a this dot emit. Now, I guess the easiest way to explain it, if you go to CAP, somewhere in CAP, and do a search for emit, let's see what happens. Handling operator, emitter, serve.emit. There we go. Serve.emit, or messaging emitting events. Okay. So generally, the CAP server, this is philosophy. In scripting, in some functional languages, in sort of an obtuse philosophy. One version of which is in TCL, for example, everything is a string. Okay, everything is a this, everything is a that, everything is a string. In CAP, I think it's also fair to say, in a sort of really light way, everything is an event. Whether that's incoming standard OData operations, like a read or a query or an update, or incoming functions like submit order or actions. All these are handled as events, right? But also, the CAP server can respond to events in the more traditional sense of the word event, i.e. events in the context of MQTT or AMQP or HTTP-based events, right? But it treats everything almost like the same, which is a beautiful way of thinking about things. But what CAP can also do, what you can also do in a server implementation, is not only respond to requests. You can make requests of external services, for example, but you can also, as well as respond to incoming or events that are created, you can also create events yourself. So emitting events, what did you say here? Yeah, there we go. Await messaging emit, right? So you can emit events, and eventing and CAP is just so amazing, right? So that's almost like a separate series. We should do that, shouldn't we? We should do that. So hopefully that explains it a little bit, Atanu. Let me know if that explains it. So could that event be I wish the YouTube chat wouldn't put that heart in the way, because I can't see what Kazati is saying. Let me go there. Could that event be a post request to an S4 HANA from BTP? Well, yes, but it wouldn't be an event in the same way that we're looking at here. In where was it there? That is an event that's been defined. Okay, we're digressing here, but that's just, what was that? Where were we? Cat service. Let's have a look. Authenticated user. Somewhere, there will be an event defined, right? Or unless it's a standard event. Cap service. Ordered book. We could look, but basically there'll be an event defined called ordered book, and that event will have a payload defined, and that payload in this case has got a book property and a quantity property and a buyer property, right? So we'll dig into that maybe another time, but basically it's an event that's defined in sort of, what's the word? It used to be called messaging service. What's it called now? I don't know. SAP Cloud Messaging Service. I don't know what it's called now. They changed the name and it's confused me. But basically, it's that sort of event. So that hopefully explain that a little bit, Kazatis. So yes, you could make a post request to S4HANA in an after context. Of course you could. Yes. Event mesh. Thank you, Charakia. Event mesh. DJ, come on, wake up. So there we go. Now, what we were about to look at? We were about to look at this thing here. Yes, there we go. That thing there. What time is it? 8:44. Now, have a think. Maybe we'll do this next time because this takes a lot of, I think this should take a lot of digging in. Notice on line 15, for each. How many people are aware of what for each does in JavaScript, in Node.js JavaScript? And how that differs philosophically, but also practically from map, which we just used, and how that mutates, changes, or doesn't the data upon which it is operating. This is such a beautiful example here because we've got this after method and we're passing it the definition of a function. We're passing it a definition of a function, which basically is just that blue highlighted bit there. And that function is basically an anonymous function expecting a data parameter. Is only interested in the data, in the results that are passed to it. And what it will do is it will call this function, change urgency due to subject, which is there, right, in this, passing it the data. And what this does is it receives the data and make sure there is some data. And also it'll do a little sort of little dance to say, well, is this an array? Is this not an array? If it isn't, let's just make it an array by enclosing it in square brackets. That's quite interesting in terms of what we want to look at shortly with each, right? But yes, and then it will go through each of the elements, right, in this array with for each, and then set something. Okay, now the question is, does setting something inside of for each mutate or not? Okay, that's a big question. And what is this data? What is data that gets passed to us? Think about these are really big philosophical questions, but I think it's important to understand how this works. I mean, we can use this as is without thinking too deeply about it. But I think it's important to understand what actually is going on. Now, Chanakia says, Chanakia is on fire today with the chat. Brilliant, Chanakia. Kudos to you. So map is a higher order function which doesn't mutate the original array. Perfect. A higher order function, basically a higher order function. The phrase higher order function is from functional programming mostly, and it means a function that can take another function as an argument and or emit, don't use emit because that's an overloaded term, or produce a new function as its output. Okay, that's higher order functions are a fundamental basis of functional programming, and it's a beautiful thing, right? So Chanakia is correct in that regard, but also correct in that the whole idea of map is that if you use it in the normal way, it doesn't change what you're mapping over. It produces a new instance of the array over which you're mapping. Now, the callback function that you can pass to map in this sort of higher order relationship, you do get information. You get a reference to the array itself, and you get a reference to the index of the item that you're mapping over. You could, if you wanted to, if you were really stupid, use that to mutate the actual original array. So you can technically do it, but you'd be an idiot if you did, right? So for each, Janakia says, mutates the original array. In fact, before we go to mutating, Mark has said something really interesting as well, which is also correct, which is one of the beautiful things about map is that being a higher order function and being more of the functional programming aesthetic, that's the wrong word, but anyway, I'm going to use it, in JavaScript, it allows us to chain because it produces this new array. So you map over an array and it produces an array. In fact, let's do it. Node. Const a equals, and notice I'm using const, right? To sort of underline. Oh my God, A49. To underline that we're not going to be mutating this. We can't mutate it if it's constant. 1, 2, 3, right? Let's do that. A.map, right? X plus 10, right? And so if we run that use an anonymous function as the single parameter to map. There are other anyway, let's not even go there. That's obvious what happens, right? What happens there? So it produces something. Now, going to Mark's comment here, which is also very correct and very important, for each is not chainable. So if I wanted to say a.map and then dot filter, but only show me the ones that are where x is less than 12, for example. There, okay. So we can sort of chain functions together in a beautiful way. Now, if we were to say a dot for each x plus 10, right? It doesn't spit anything out. So we couldn't then chain something on here, filter, cannot read properties of undefined. We get undefined from the for each, so we can't chain these things, right? And it's immutable. But if we were to say var b equals 456 b dot for each x plus 10, 456, that doesn't mutate either. However, and I don't want to go into this in too much detail. For each can and does mutate, right? In fact, let's go into it really quickly, right? And I'll say very briefly, the reason why we're not mutating these values here is because these are primitive values, like booleans, integers, strings, for example, are primitive values, and function calls in JavaScript are pass by value. Okay. Yes, exactly. Visa says for each always returns undefined. Exactly. So if we were to have var c equals I don't know, color red, color blue, right? For example, there. And then we were to say c dot for each x dot. In fact, let's do map first. Map. Let's clear the screen. There's C. So if we say C map x dot color, let's just get a list of the colors there, red and blue. Okay. If we were to say, for example, x dot color equals a different color, we would get that. Okay. Which is also fine. However, if we were to say c dot for each x dot color equals a new color, check it out, we've mutated the original. Now, let me know in the chat if in the next episode we want to go a little bit deeper into this and why this happens to objects and why this doesn't happen to to primitives, okay, and what that effect has on things like this. We need to understand a little bit about this to properly understand what's going on here, right? Does that make sense? Anyway, before we go, because we've got 6 minutes left, what I want to do is talk a little bit about, and that's also, by the way, why, and again, we need to understand, I think we need to understand this because it's really important, why this is working, because we're not returning anything here, are we? We are not returning anything, even if we did. Oops. It would be exactly the same, right? It would have no real new effect. Look at, I love the listening plugin because it's only going to request it now. There, look at that. It's the same thing. We don't really need to do the return. We should normally, if we want to pass information back from this anonymous callback function, when it's defined in curly braces, nothing's actually returned. So what is happening? But before we do anything else, so Dwight says the this on read is intercepting the request before the data are actually read, whereas this after read, the data are actually available, thus the anonymous function can operate on. Yes, Dwight is absolutely right, but I think what I'm more focused on here, what Dwight says is 100% correct and not in dispute here at all, right? What I'm saying is, why does doing a map, for example, that returns something, but we're in this code block here, which means that there's nothing passed back from this anonymous function. So how can we even affect the data that's coming through? Why does that work? Okay, that's what I think we do need to look into this next time. Let me know in the chat if you want to look into it next time. So Mark says, for your information, if you use SAP XS Security, don't use V4. Wasted my whole yesterday as there is a bug in it. Thank you, Mark. That's very nice. Visas, I guess because array is passed by reference, we directly modify value in the memory of that array. Visas has got it. Visas has got it. Now, we want to unpack what Visas says next time, I think, by some simple examples here. If you want to do that, let me know, okay? So Kiara says complex objects are passed by reference. Yes, exactly. So some of you are getting it already, which is beautiful, right? So Michael says objects in JavaScript are, again, I need to see what it says, are references like pointers in. Yes, well, yes, they are references, but function calls are passed by, yeah, okay. Brilliant. So you're with me. Now, what I want to do here is just explore a little bit. Let's log the data, right? Let's do that. Come on. There we go. Okay, perfect. So what do we get logged out? We get, with our little cat B2B logger prefix, cool, we get an array of objects. Okay. Now, if we were to say each here, let's just whack it in, right, before thinking about it. Let's use that example that we saw somewhere here, right? Where was it? I can't remember where it was now. There may be each. It doesn't matter. Now, I've just changed read to each, a magic word. If I save that, we get the same response, but check out, what have we got? What's the difference over here? We get not one log record with an array, we get 3 log records, each with not an array, but a single object. Okay, this is a convenience function. It used to be that this happened when you put each here, and when you actually named, it still does actually, I think, for backwards compatible. Oh, maybe it doesn't. Data is not. Oh, sorry, logger each there. It's for backward compatibility reasons that still works, but we shouldn't use that approach. Okay, we should instead use that approach. Now, I've written about this in, where is it? Each, where is it? There, blog post, defining a custom after handling cap. So that there describes what I'm rushing through and what you should do, okay? So basically, TLDR, there's a special behavior if you use the each parameter name when defining an after handler, but the way this works and the way you should invoke it has changed. Okay, so check that out as well. And we'll dig in a little bit more and do some cool things with an after handler. I think we might, going back to what Daniel said, he gave me the idea that we could define a virtual property, a virtual element in our books, for example, so that we don't have that persisted in the database. We just have it computed on the fly. There's another way you can use the after handler to sort of compute values, okay, and put those values in a virtual element that doesn't get persisted but gets exposed in the OData service. Right, I hope that was okay. No live stream next week because I'm doing a code jam, but let's do this. Let's carry on the week after. And Ishan, good morning, and over we go. So watch the live stream replay. Is Ishan, and Dwight, great stuff. Thanks, DJ. Wizaz, thanks, DJ, and everyone for their session. Amy, thank you all. Kazazis, and yeah, okay. Goodbye. Have a great Friday. Have a great weekend, and see you soon. Bye.